Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to the meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for July the 9th, 2025. Will now come to order. Notice to all in attendance that this meeting will be live streamed on YouTube and recorded. Please note the recording will be linked to the municipal website following the meeting. The introduction of our committee today, we have Chris Bishop, Jerry Walker. We have Adam Meyer, who is Secretary Treasurer for the Committee of Adjustment. And then we have Jeff Isles, who is Director of Planning and Land Information. And Barry Boyce, who is Councilor of Ward 5 in Haliburton. This is a public hearing to consider, and I am your chair. I'm Don Popple, and I'm your chair today. This is a public meeting to consider 4 applications for a minor variance to the municipality zoning bylaw. It's the committee's responsibility to consider any information received to date regarding the requested variances and to hear and consider any comments or questions provided by these applications. Any variances granted by the committee must meet 4 tests, which are very clearly defined in the Planning Act. Requested variances must be minor in nature, must be desirable for the property development of the land, comply with the general intent of the official plan, and comply with the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Please note that if anyone wishes to be notified of the decision, please make a request in writing to the municipality. Does any committee member wish to declare a conflict of interest on any of these applications today? No. The answer should be recorded as no. Any oral or written submissions received in advance of the meeting will be verbally read aloud at the time the application is considered. All persons who have pre-registered will have an opportunity to present or ask questions about the proposals. Please direct all your questions and comments to the chair. Please state your name in relation to the application prior to speaking. First thing we have to do is adopt the the minutes from June the 11th. I need a mover and a seconder to it. Moved by Barry Boyce. Seconded by Gerald Walker. It's moved and seconded that the minutes from the Committee of Adjustment meeting on June the 11th, 2025 be adopted as presented. And it's been moved and seconded by Barry Boyce and Gerald Walker. Is that all in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. There you are, Captain.
First, I'm going to bring the agent forward.
So Larry and Dave Barton, if you'd like to, we got 2 chairs here and
He's just my security today.
it's all right.
With that, that'll come up and then when you're.
Thank you very much.
Has he got a speaker there?
Yep, and then his agent, Haley Weatherby, I'm just bringing her forward.
Okay, if you want to bring us up to date on where you're at and where we're at, then we'll carry on from there. Is that
Sure. Yeah, that totally works. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it.
okay?
So just a little bit about us. We've owned the place for over 20 years. It's on Little Kinesis Lake. Family's been in the area. We've back in Haliburton Forest for my whole life, 50 years. And then my sister and her husband have taught for their whole careers here in Haliburton at the high school. I work in municipal government as well. So, but first time on this side of the fence. And then I chair of Conservation Ontario, vice chair of TRCA. So I work in that area a bit. So obviously really interested in protecting the lake. And my wife works at Haliburton Hospital, does some shifts there and other places as well. So we're even though we're not from town, we're fairly local. And then this is a cottage that was built in the early 80s. It's we looked at doing renovations and realized that by the time you start spending money fixing issues, it might make more sense to rebuild. Certainly want to make it more energy efficient and make it accessible so that when we struggle with things like stairs, it will be able to manage dealing with the property as we age. So that's sort of why we're doing this. We've got Haley calling in via Zoom here, so she can fill in the gaps. But the lot, like most on Locanesis, are complicated from the
So-
driveway's
so-
already about as steep as you can manage and still manage the winter. And and it's pretty tight. So we need to kind of we have to get fairly close to the edges to make this work for us.
Okay. Do you want to start that off, Gerald?
Right. I think Haley has a quick presentation, if you want to let her present quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically, hi, everybody. It is basically probably what you've seen when you've done your review, when you get these packages, and maybe if you've gone to site, but it's just a nice overlay. The left is the existing cottage and where it exists today, and the right is an overlay in the teal. You can see the light gray behind of where the existing cottage is narrower than the proposed that is wider. And then, like Dave had mentioned, the reasoning for this, you can see the topography lines that are going horizontal, like waves across the screen, are it dropping in elevation. So in order to make a bigger cottage, going front to back was not ideal, but going wider was kind of possible to keep flat planes and not encroaching on that driveway that drives right down steep, and parking at that back portion. We've even talked about actually of bringing the back lot line or back line forward more to make it not as deep, but this is sort of our starting to see if we could even get the width possible with the zoning bylaws. So yeah.
The request is for a variance to section 5.2 to permit a seasonal dwelling to have a minimum interior,
Cider?
with my glasses on there. Side lot line setback of 1.2 meters or 3.9 feet as opposed to required minimum of 4.5 meters or 15 feet. This is what you're asking for?
Correct.
Correct. When you have a question, go ahead.
Okay, just during some investigation here, I understand that there's a problem with the lot coverage, the calculation of the size of the lot. And maybe Adam could just explain what they found on that.
So through you, Chair, staff were we were trying to figure out what the actual lot area was, because you had submitted 0.83 and we went with those measurements.
Yeah.
Just looking at surrounding lots, they looked a bit smaller. So we tried to do some digging, and on the plan of subdivision, we took a rough estimate of the lot and it appears to be around 0.4 acres. Now, if you own, or if the applicant owned the shore road allowance, that would probably add lot area, and that's maybe where that number came from. So with the 0.4 acres, this development wouldn't comply with lot coverage.
And so how much is it over? So, or you might not know that. So basically our numbers for our lot are smaller or larger than the lot area you have on file.
That's what it appears to be.
Yeah.
We did a quick calculation. It looks like it's going to be around 20% lot coverage, and you're allowed 15.
Okay. And then so basically we were working off a really old survey, and then we were working off a topography of the lot that picked up some bars, but wasn't an Ontario registered land survey. So basically we need a proper survey done of the lot to confirm that lot area. Is that because it's basically your number kind of against my number on an old survey that is making it tricky of what's the real number of the lot.
And if I may, through you, Chair, it's Jeff Iles, the Director of Planning. So I'm just reviewing one of the attachments that was provided on the agenda today, and I believe it was submitted by the applicants, and it shows the old original plan of subdivision, which indicates that the lot's about 185.39 feet by about 95 feet. So when we did just some simple math, just to get a general idea, that's where we came up with that number.
Okay.
I know it's a bit late, and the committee unfortunately can't make a decision on lot coverage today because we haven't circulated it as per the Planning Act. So before the committee could make a decision on that, and if the applicants wanted to proceed with that, we would have to recirculate and provide proper notice for that variance.
Yeah. I appreciate that. That's fine. Can we still talk about the side yard that was circulated? Because then we can design to accommodate smaller, but within that width.
Yes, yeah, the committee can still make a decision on that today and discuss it.
Okay, and then to troubleshoot why that lot coverage is wrong, how do we fix that? That is getting an up-to-date survey?
Or buying the shore road, right? Can I still purchase that?
You can make application to purchase the shore road allowance. It would,
Okay.
that process does require a survey, so
Okay.
you would get an accurate measurement through that process. If you wanted to proceed with a lot coverage variance, I don't think you'd need to get a survey. I would err on the side of caution. We will likely include or staff would likely recommend a condition that a surveyor confirm that measurement. So I don't
Okay.
think they'd have to do a full registered survey, but they might have to go out on site, take some measurements and prepare a letter saying whether it does or doesn't comply with the lot coverage.
Okay. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, we weren't aware of that until it was brought up by the committee member here. So,
Yeah, we just determined that this morning, so we apologize for that.
Okay, no problem. And then we would 15% is our coverage. Like we could give it a bit of a trim anyways and still comply if needed.
On our rough calculations, if we reduce the lot area to 0.4 acres, your development, that would count towards that. That's with the bunkie being removed, because it doesn't comply with the water setback. It was around 19%, 19 or 20.
So we got to take off 5% of the coverage if we don't want to apply for a minor variance for the coverage. Got it. Or buy the shore allowance. Okay, 2 options there. Give it a trim or buy more land.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Walker?
Okay, so that was one of the concerns. Number 2 concern is the side lot setback down to 1.2 meters, I believe it said on our application. That in our kind of discussion is maybe a little more than a minor type of setback on the side. The concerns there is whenever we've looked at reducing sideline, we usually omit any windows or entrances on that particular side, which would face the neighbor. And one of the comments that I noticed is like on a 1.2, you can't even put a ladder up to get to your eave or your roof or any servicing. So I think we'd probably have to entertain something a little wider than 1.2 on that particular part. And I think the other was just briefly discussed here is the removal of the bunkie. Because it's inside the water setback. So I didn't know if you're aware of removing that.
yeah, that's been understood.
Understood?
Yeah, I think it's actually on the drawing
Yeah.
where it says
Yes.
it will to be
Okay.
removed.
Yeah.
And then so the 1.24, I get it for maintenance and all that being an issue and privacy of a neighbor. Is there a minimum we could squeeze to? Like what is a reasonable number? Because what do we need? We need quite a bit more. We need 4 meters. Is there an in-between that is kind of sufficient? That like you can still access it, you're still kind of remaining on your own property, but obviously 4 meters is the ideal, but then we're kind of back to the same scenario that we don't fit the full width.
Yeah, well, my personal opinion is, yeah, that's a bit too tight. Could it be, 7, 8 feet? We've done variances like that before. I think that's fairly reasonable, but just I agree that the 3.9 feet is too close. But could you make it 7 feet, 8 feet?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. So, because I think I hate meters. I don't know if you guys do too. So we're over 4 feet. So if that almost doubled to 8 feet, that would give us a bit of a buffer. I also saw one of the stipulations was some planting on that line too. So I guess that also squeezes our usable space. So an 8-foot setback on that side.
Jeff? go ahead.
Yeah, and if I may, through you, Chair, right now there is a proposed or recommended condition for a 1 meter planting strip. Ideally, that would be a lot wider. Typically, we would like at least a minimum of 3 meters or 10 feet. So that the further that, whatever the committee decides, if they decide at 2 meters or 3 meters, we might recommend a wider buffer to coincide with whatever setback you grant. As mentioned in our report, privacy is an issue with the neighbors when you're built that close. So that would be the reason for that vegetation buffer.
Okay.
So Jeff, can we settle this today then? Like, can we establish our setback today that without them having to come back again?
Yep, the committee
Okay.
can make a decision today.
Okay. You want to propose a, well, that would be a totally different issue. We can do this issue today and the lot coverage can be dealt with at another time, right?
Well, the committee might want to ask that of the applicant, because if you do make a decision today, then they're going to have to apply for a brand new variance if they need a lot coverage variance. Conversely, you could defer it today, and if they need a slight adjustment on lot coverage, we could recirculate, but they wouldn't need a new application fee. So we could just defer this decision today, wait to see what your lot coverage comes in at. We could recirculate it, but you wouldn't have to do the $1,200 administration fee again. But if a decision's made today, then this file's done and you're gonna have to make a new application for $1,200 for the lot coverage. So it's up to the applicant or the committee, but you might want to discuss that.
What do you guys, what's your thoughts?
Oh, so again, just, we were not aware of this until this morning, until I sat in the seat, so I get it. Now, but what I would do if I was chairing the meeting, I would say I would delegate that to staff, that secondary piece. And so
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have that decision-making authority. It has to go through the Planning Act, and the Committee of Adjustment is the delegated authority from council. to
okay,
make
fair enough.
decisions.
Yeah, so
So you could decide either to go ahead with the one now and take a chance that you'll be able to trim the building down to meet that 15%.
just a follow-up question, if you don't mind. Again, we not really concerned about trimming the square footage. We can figure that out, whether it's probably off the back, but concern the process to purchase the shore allowance. How complicated is that?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I can answer that. It's not necessarily a complicated process, but it's a time-consuming process, and it takes roughly a year is what we like to say. They are getting quicker, but it's still, you're not going to have your answer anytime soon,
Okay.
depending on your building time frame.
Yeah, and we just got our first price back and it's 1.4. So, which the numbers don't work anyway. So it's a complicated, we want to invest in Halliburton. We want to stay in Halliburton. My wife wants to work more in Halliburton. But our current structure doesn't work long-term for us. So, we're looking for a path to get this done. Time matters. Right now it's easy to get trades. That will change. So I can't wait a year. We can't defer this back to staff. So I guess I made a trip up here for, it's a wasted trip because again, didn't realize that information until this morning.
Well, the question was, could he get a building permit before buying the shore road allowance? And so the zoning bylaw is applicable law. So if buying that shore road allowance is required to bring him into compliance with the lot coverage, then he wouldn't get a building permit because he wouldn't comply with the applicable law. So they couldn't issue a building.
So if we defer it, is that in their best interest?
Well, depending on the timeframes of your architect, like we could be back next month.
Yeah, I think it's really the only option.
Yeah.
I'd prefer to purchase my shore allowance, but that's a long process, it sounds like, so that won't work. Haley, thoughts?
Yeah, so I do have some thoughts. So we're really, we applied thinking the side yard was our issue, which is fine, because I think we can work with a middle ground on that. The second new one is our building's too big for the coverage, because we thought our lot was larger. Because the house is coming in higher, or the cottage is coming in higher than we thought budget-wise and over, I don't think a 4% trim on square footage is terrible, because maybe even some of it's in decking and stuff. We're at 19% now, or coverage, according to like a smaller lot. So we need to trim 4% of everything touching the ground. So maybe we can do some clever things with a little trim on the house, which we're already going to lose when we come in off that side yard. So we're going to lose that whole second or left side sleeve because we can't be that far to the left. So we're trimming that way. And then maybe we do something, which should give us a few percentage off. Like I think 4% on the coverage isn't scary. I'm not worried about the coverage one.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about the side yard one, and how far left we can go, because that really dictates the coverage too. So if we have to be 8 feet off the side yard, we're losing 4 feet by whatever the depth is this front to back right now. So that may be our 4% anyways.
Yeah, and the lot is tricky. I think somebody has been on the site. The driveway's complicated already.
Yeah, like I think we get our variance for the side yard setback and then work within the numbers. I think the cottage needs a slight diet anyways, and I'm not scared by a 4% diet on the cottage.
Yeah, I wonder if we defer, change our drawings to, now,
Yeah.
what would you support then?
So I was just gonna suggest, it sounds to me like your best option is to go back to the drawing board. We defer it till next month. You come back with knowing what we're looking at, and we could probably pass it at the next month.
Okay,
And then you can, if you want to downsize your building to meet the lot coverage, you can worry about your short
Yeah.
road allowance at a later date.
no, it makes sense. The other follow-up
And
then,
then you have some options. And like, it can still come back for next month's meeting, which is only delaying you a month, 30 days.
just to follow up, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, sorry, we've gone, the decorum's shifted because I'm used to chairing the meeting, sorry. Question, so what would the committee support from setback with the neighbor?
Barry?
Oh, I'm to you guys, I think 3 meters rather than 1. Was that okay?
I think 2.4 was mentioned to get the 8 feet.
I'm yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm fine with it, actually. That's
There's
Yeah.
mature trees between, like
yeah,
we
Yep.
wouldn't put it right next to it. There's
sure.
there's a cliff between us, really.
Okay. And that would you automatically maybe increase the planting then a little bit, or?
So through you, Chair, just to clarify, 2.5 meters would be 8.2 feet. I know the committee's not making a decision today, but just so we have that number out there. Staff would like to recommend maybe increasing that vegetation buffer from 1 meter to 2 meters or 1.5 meters, whatever the committee would like. If you want, I can read the conditions and any comments. So through you, Chair, notice of the minor variance was circulated as required by regulation on June 24th, 2025. No comments have been received. Should the committee decide to grant the requested variance, the following conditions would be appropriate. This variance applies to a seasonal dwelling as shown generally on the property sketch dated June 19th, 2025. The County of Haliburton Shoreline Tree Preservation Bylaw 3505 applies. Condition number 3, prior to the pouring of footings, the applicants must submit confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the seasonal dwelling meets the interior side lot line setback as granted by the committee. Condition number 4, prior to the pouring of footings, the applicants must submit confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the seasonal dwelling does not encroach into the minimum water setback. Condition number 5, prior to the pouring of footings, the applicants must submit confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the attached deck does not encroach more than 3 meters into the minimum water setback. Condition number 6, prior to the pouring of footings, the private cabin shall be removed or brought into compliance. Condition number 7, no decks, windows, doors, openings, stairs, or lights shall be located on the side of the seasonal dwelling abutting the interior side lot line in which the variance was granted. And condition number 8, a 1 meter planting strip shall be implemented and or maintained along the interior side lot line. And staff would recommend that if the committee were to grant a greater setback, that be bumped up either to 1.5 or 2 meters.
That acceptable to you people?
That works for me.
Hold on, I do have some comments. Sorry, it's not good, Dave.
Okay, sorry. What do we?
The only one I'm really concerned about is 0.7, where it says no windows can be on that side yard. But that is the primary bedroom, so legally we do need a window. So I think knowing that side yard setback, like how far, I think we landed on the 2.4, is that right? It kind of blurbed out here. But if it is 2x4, like are we allowed a certain percentage of window, so Dave's not stuck on fire in his bed? Can it be higher? Or
So
something?
that's just staff's recommended conditions. The committee can alter it if they like.
Okay,
Change, they can take it out.
okay. Yeah, so I think we need to work back. Are we, I just want to clarify, are we set on that 2.4? Is that the one we're kind of like going to come back with? And then, is that what it was? Or was it higher?
Chris?
2.4.
Yeah, 2.4, the one and the 1.5.
Okay,
And what? So again, you said there's a lot of mature trees between you and the neighbor on that side.
Yeah, there's a full strip, there's septics on that side, there's a cliff there, like, there, you can't really even see each other very well there, so.
Well, if that's the case, I'm okay with one window on that side. I mean, what's the difference between an 8 feet?
Yeah.
You know, anyway, that's my thought. So let's say we're gonna settle on 2.4 setback, 1.5 meter planting strip. I guess we either do that now or you guys defer it to deal with the rest of your issues. Or, yeah, what's your guys' thoughts on that then?
yeah, I guess that's you and I, Dave. Like, do we want to look at a smaller coverage and go with that side yard setback, or do we come in with a whole new proposal?
Yeah,
With-
let's agree to this and we'll shave it.
But if we shave, yeah, okay, agree to it and shave it. So the
So then
2.4.
So we're not gonna defer that.
Go ahead, Joe.
In terms of that condition or the proposed condition with regards to no openings, no doors, no lights, we could proceed that condition with except as otherwise required by the building code.
Oh yeah, that's good.
There's no doors. That way, whatever is legally required by the building code, they would be permitted.
Yeah, although Dave, you probably want that one that's on the left of the fireplace too, because you kind of wanted that glass corner, but that's away from the other cottage. Is that the front of the cottage?
Or we could go with frosted so you can't see it.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe we can have a percentage of glazing on that side of one that's like towards the lake, because that basically the left corner of the front looking out of the lake was a glazed panel. It was only 3 feet wide. And then we need one in the bedroom. We can eliminate the bathroom one or any of those, like any of the extra ones. But I think I like the building code idea because that makes sense. Because we're like, okay, we can't even have a bedroom there without a window. But then there is one that's aesthetically, wow. So now I want a different rule.
For the visual.
Mr. Bishop, did you wish to speak?
Here, former member of the OMB, I suggest windows only. Once you bring a door out there, now you have to have an entrance, a walkway and stairway and all that. If because the door there, right? You're not gonna approach further into that setback on that side.
We're not putting a door.
Right, and you actually can't maintain the buffer.
Yep.
either. So windows only. I'm just throwing that in. I'm not even on this file, but it's showing that.
That's the work. My friend behind me. So like, if you could just remove that condition, that gives us flexibility. And obviously, we're close friends with the neighbors. We're not gonna do it. Jeopardize this relationship. There's obviously lots of glass in the front. Like, where's that?
Yeah, we could reword it. Sorry, just to say like no lights, no doors, and just get rid of the openings in the windows portion of it. Sorry, I'm just trying to scroll to where it is. Yeah, we could keep the decks, we could keep the doors, we could keep the stairs and the lights, but then windows and like, because windows are openings as well, so we could just take out windows and openings and the rest. I mean, sorry, just leave in. Nope, I'm getting confused. Take out the windows and openings, then they'd be permitted on that side.
Take that out of the condition.
Take it out of the condition, so they'd be,
Sorry, you
they'd
can't
be
hear.
permitted to have windows on that side of the building.
Okay.
Just no doors, no decks, no lights.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And really it is only, there's 3 windows and we'd be willing to take one out.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think,
Let's go two
Sure.
windows. And we put that right into the,
yeah, I agree with Barry. We should have a limit on windows.
Okay.
Because we don't want to set a precedence here, because the next thing would be a flat lot somewhere and somebody's gonna have windows across, so there is a reason for it. It's a privacy issue. And you could understand is you and your neighbor own now, but 15 years from now, could be two different neighbors totally, and it's a planning issue.
Hey.
Thanks.
So are you acceptable to that?
Yes, I'm acceptable to that.
Okay, Adam.
Through you, Chair. So I'll have to figure out the wording for that, but it'll be no decks, doors, opening, stairs or lights, except and windows except two windows, something like that, along those lines. Yeah, we'll have to get a wording for that, but it basically to permit two windows.
Windows
on that
approved by
side.
staff. Sorry to jump in. Windows approved by staff.
Well, it's for the committee's comments. It's a maximum of two windows, I think is
Yeah.
what you said. So we've just kind of worded to include a maximum of two windows. And I think we should keep in except as otherwise required by the building code. Just in case there are requirements there. If that works for everybody.
Haley, my wife will agree with that. We're gonna be okay.
Yeah, I think you're good. So I like the front corner window for your aesthetics. I like your bedroom window, and really you lying in bed looking out at the neighbors. You also don't want that. So I think we could even have a 3-foot sill height so you're not staring at them anyway. Like I think it works for everyone there. But I do think you need a window.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, where do you want to go with the variances requested?
I think we said 0.2 meters on the setback and just
Do you want to defer it?
No, I think they requested a decision be made today. I think based on the committee discussion, you guys can tell me if I'm correct. The consensus seemed to be that the setback be compromised at 2.4 meters. That the condition for a vegetation buffer be increased from 1 meter to 1.5 meters. And condition 7 be altered to something along the lines of as otherwise required by the building code. No decks, windows, doors, openings, blah, blah, are required within that abutting setback. Except a maximum of 2 windows would be permitted along that side.
I think you
I'll
got,
come up with something better than
I
that.
think you got it.
I like that. And then just to confirm while we're here, we're going to go with the 0.4 acres as our lot size and stay under 15%.
yeah.
Yeah, regardless, that's not something we can change today. And we can talk to you afterwards, Haley. Talk about the measurements and work with you on that. But even if this was approved today and you went to get your building permit, they would not be able to grant it because you wouldn't comply with lot coverage. So we can
Right.
chat. I'm happy to chat with you about that after the meeting.
I just was trying to go about how do we get the actual lot size basically, but I'll use the 0.4 because that's
Yeah.
what you else have or plus.
That
Okay.
site plan that you submitted, which was the original plan of subdivision, I think that's the most accurate thing we have.
Okay.
So we can just take the measurements from that.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
So we're going.
I'm happy with that.
No, we're going to have it.
We're going to
Yeah.
So you want to docket this up so I can read it? So I need a mover and a seconder for this. Chris Bishop,
Accept the changes.
I'll second that.
second by Gerald Walker. Moved and seconded that be resolved the committee's decision with respect to file D13 MV 2025-011 be recorded as follows. Variance to section 5.2 to permit a seasonal dwelling to have a minimum interior side lot line setback of 2.4 meters or 7.8 feet, as opposed to required minimum of 4.5 meters or 15 feet. Is granted? Carried.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
very much,
very
everyone.
much.
appreciate it. Thanks for your support.
Number 2. Land the plumber. This is Land the plumber. Greg, are you representing the plumbers?
No, he's on number 2.
Number 2?
Number 3.
Number 3?
Darren, can you unmute your mic and show your video?
There we go. There we go. How's that? Everybody got me?
Yep, we can see you and hear you.
Okay. Sorry about the surroundings here. I'm in my little grooming station.
I'll make it up here. I don't know where we're at.
We're just starting the second file.
Yeah.
So this is Darren Plummer, who's the property owner.
So who is the property owner?
Yep. This is
Right
Darren
there.
Plummer. He's the property owner.
Go
I
ahead.
am the property owner.
Go ahead.
Oh, I start? Oh, perfect. Okay, sorry. Unlike Dave there, who I know quite well, I'm very foreign to this. So my name's Darren Plummer. I live at 1197 Precipice. Live there it is a recreational property for me, seasonal. We've had the property for about, I want to say 12 years now. We bought it as just land, went through the whole process, built a cottage on it probably about 7 years ago. And probably about 3 years ago, we started building a little outbuilding, just over 3 years ago, a little outbuilding down on the lower end to basically, I'm not a big fan of having my toys, kayaks, all that kind of stuff, like just laying all over the place. It would irritate me as a neighbor, and I don't expect my neighbors to want to see that stuff either. I like my properties kept clean, neat, tidy, all that kind of stuff. So that was the purpose of the shed that we were building. 2.5 years ago, on my way back from my cottage, my wife and I were run off the road, hit by a 62-ton transport truck. We were on the right side of the dirt, thankfully. But the injuries that we did sustain at the time made it almost, it made it impossible for her to continue with her job. We were just in the midst of building our house up here in Uxbridge. And my side job or whatever like that, I can't do that anymore either because of injuries that I have and I'm still going through. So it kind of changed our lives. We didn't have a choice. We had to pivot. If you remember 3 years ago, mortgage rates were through the roof. Everything else was basically just getting stacked against us. And with the changes of the jobs and everything, we had to sort of figure something out. So we quite quickly decided that maybe that little shed would serve as a bedroom and we could put our cottage on Airbnb, which is not something that we ever thought we were going to do. And in our old situation, we would have never needed or required to do, but that nevertheless became a reality to us as much as we dislike it. And so we changed it all up. We put our thing on Airbnb because we needed the additional income and all that kind of stuff with our new situation. What we didn't know is that the bunkie that we built there's a rule against it, a bylaw against it, for having it on the lake side of the cottage. Again, that wasn't the intent when we started building that building and area, but as it did become a bunkie, and my grandkids will again play in it and everything once this Airbnb thing is over with, which we're hoping will be next year. Basically, flat out, we are not in compliance, which is why we're looking for this variance. And we've gone through all the different channels in your township. We've got applications on almost every desk with the septic and all that kind of stuff, making sure everything is checked off. This is the last piece of the pie. And literally, we are looking for that exception or exemption to that portion, which would keep us on that side. Now, the bunkie itself is, I think with the pictures that were submitted with my application, I think it's around 80 feet just off the top of my head, 80 or 82 feet off high water. Our properties were all surveyed at 66 feet off of high water, which is actually, I could have built my cottage at 66 feet. And in hindsight, maybe I should have, because then my bunkie wouldn't have been on the lakeside. But we have quite a steep hill on our piece of property, like many do in Haliburton. And we decided we wanted to build the cottage in the middle of that hill to kind of take it out of play. So you walk about 20 feet to go from where you can park into the cottage, go down through the 2 stories of the cottage, and then you're about 20 feet from the lower deck down to the waterfront. And we are sitting, the cottage right now is sitting the front of the cottage or the back of the cottage, whatever you prefer. The lake side of the cottage is about 140 feet from high water. So, I mean, everything is outside of any of our surveyed regulations that we had. The only downside, like I said, is that we are on the lakeside with that bunkie. And yeah, that's what brings me to you. And the other side of it is, which was brought to my attention, our one side of our property going from the lake to the road is very definitive. It's just one line, point to point. The other side, being, I guess that would be the west side of our property, the property line is the creek. And over the 11, 12 years that we've been there, 13 years, whatever it happens to be, that creek has changed. I wouldn't say dramatically, but it has moved because that water runs quite a bit down there. It's one of the 3 or 4 drainage creeks from the higher lands that goes down the side of Long Lake. And all it has to do is hit a branch and all of a sudden it diverts in another direction and it diverts in another direction. So from the original points that we actually had with the actual stakes that we could find, that bunkie was about 2 meters off of that creek. I didn't think that the bunkie fell into when it was a shed, I guess it wouldn't have mattered having that building to 2 meters from, but now that it is considered living space or inhabitable, I guess it does fall into that category where it should be what I just heard with Dave there, 4 meters or something. So I'm asking for a minor variance also with that because of the location of the bunkie.
Okay, we have some questions on that?
I think we'll let Adam maybe read out the conditions and kind of make sure you guys are happy with these conditions. If we do, go ahead with it.
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
through you, Chair, notice of the minor variance was circulated as required by regulation on June 24th, 2025. No comments have been received. Should the committee decide to grant the requested variance, the following conditions would be appropriate. These variances apply to a private cabin as shown generally on the property sketch dated May 27th, 2025 and attached to the decision. Condition number 2, the County of Haliburton Shoreline Tree Preservation Bylaw 3505 applies. Condition number 3, the applicants must submit confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the private cabin meets the granted interior side lot line setback. Condition number 4, the existing vegetation buffer located between the private cabin and the interior side lot line shall be maintained. And condition number 5, prior to September 1st, 2025, the tarp structure shall be removed.
Are you, before we grant anything, are you okay with all those conditions?
Yeah, I'm just going off the top of my head here. So the first one, sorry, can we just hit a point and I'll sort of chime in? What was point 1?
So that condition just ties the variance to your property sketch.
Okay, so that's good. Point 2?
The second one is that the County of Haliburton Shoreline Tree Preservation Bylaw 3505 applies.
Right. And I just heard all that stuff before or whatever. From that side of my property, there are no trees getting taken down. It's about 140 feet to the neighbor's cottage, which is all dense forest, heavily treed, and that creek. So no, there will be no activity on that side of the property at all. All right, point 3.
The applicants must submit confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the private cabin meets the granted interior side lot line setback.
Okay, now that's one of the things that we're actually asking for an exemption for, right? Because your own staff have been down there and they've walked and taken a measurement. I believe actually you yourself did it. Did you not, Adam?
I have not taken measurement. Here at Dysart, we don't pull tape. We're not surveyors. So generally with variances that are with setbacks, we ask for OLS confirmation to make sure it complies with that variance that's granted.
Oh, okay. I thought we were looking for an exemption because where that bunkie is, yeah, I can get an actual number of whatever it happens to be, but I do believe that it doesn't actually comply with the bylaw right now, which is why I'm looking for an exemption.
We're actually looking for the granted. So if we grant you the minimal, less than the minimal setback,
right,
then we need an Ontario land surveyor to verify that it's the granted one, not where it is now, but where.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So I just bring somebody in to put the new number in. That's what you're saying. I get a surveyor in there to tell you what the actual new number is. The granted number would be by a legitimate surveyor.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would,
Okay.
they could provide just a written letter saying that it complies with the 2.5 meters as granted by the committee if they do grant.
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Got it. Yeah, no, absolutely. And
Then condition 4 was the existing vegetation buffer, so any vegetation behind the private cabin towards that interior side lot line shall remain.
again, there's about 140 feet to the cottage. There's about 2 meters to the original stakes of the creek. We have no intentions of going anywhere that way, so that's perfect, actually.
Yep, and then the last one was prior to September 1st, that tarp structure should be or shall be removed.
Yeah, and I started doing that the other day, actually, moving a couple of the things that got collapsed into it. Whatever, I dragged them home just in this last weekend. But I still have a couple of pieces to go before I disassemble and remove it. So that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
You want to make motion, Barry?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we grant, all his variances there.
And I'll second that.
Moved by Barry Boyce and seconded by Gerald Walker, that be it resolved, the committee's decision with respect to file D13 MV 2025-012 be recorded as follows. The variance to section 3.1 E1 to permit a private cabin to be located within a front yard abutting a shoreline. Granted. Carried. Number 2 is a variance of section 3.1 EV to permit a private cabin to have a minimum interior side lot line setback of 2.5 meters or 5.9 feet, as opposed to required minimum of 4.5 meters or 15 feet is granted. Carried. That's all we got.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair, other committee members, and Adam. I guess I'll be seeing you shortly. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Okay,
2.5 meters is not 5.9 feet, it's 6.9, 6.4, 8 feet. Yeah, so
it's okay?
yeah, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a calculation. You got that?
Yep. Yeah, we can make those clerical adjustments
Do it.
on the conversion. Yep. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Bishop, are you representing do we have another case here? So you are here asking for two variances, section 5.2 to permit maximum lot coverage to be 19.4% as opposed to the permitted maximum of 15%. And variance of second one is a variance of section 5.2 to permit maximum shoreline lot coverage to be 24% as opposed to the permitted maximum of 15%. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You want to bring us up to date on it?
Sure. Do you want to explain why and what you're doing and then?
Yeah.
I'll-
Sure. Hi,
Yeah.
good morning. Yes, we've had this cottage for about 22 years. It's in a part of the Redstone Lake that's known as Oshawa Bay. And that was when all the logging activity, I guess they brought the logs down there through the West Dam. So our original cottage is 625 square feet. So it's been really sweet, really small, but our adult children don't want to sleep in a 5'8"
30 by 20.
bunk bed bedroom anymore. So we would like to expand our cottage so we have a more breathing room to accommodate, our daughters and their significant others, to do some interior changes to open up the living room and add 2 bedrooms on the back of the cottage and get a bit more space for our kitchen on the side. So that's our intention. Again, like most people, we love living there. We have fantastic neighbors. We've talked to our neighbors about this. I know you have one letter from one of our neighbors. And yeah, that's what we're asking for today.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions.
If we grant, have you got some conditions that you wish to relate to this?
Yep. So through you, Chair, notice of the minor variance was circulated as required by regulation on June 24th, 2025. The following comments have been received. So an email in support of the application was received from Jeffrey North, the neighboring property owner. Then should the committee decide to grant the requested variance, the following conditions would be appropriate. These variances apply to a seasonal dwelling as shown generally on the property sketch dated June 6, 2025, and attached to the decision. The County of Haliburton Shoreline Tree Preservation Bylaw 3505 applies. The injuring or destruction of trees within 30 meters of the high water mark is not permitted. The exemptions noted in section 3 of Bylaw 3505 apply. Furthermore, additional native shoreline planting is encouraged to screen the buildings, naturalize the shoreline, and address environmental concerns. During construction, proper site preparation and construction methods are to be used to prevent sedimentation of the adjacent lake. Sediment fencing is to be installed down gradient from the construction site. The site is to be properly stabilized immediately following construction to prevent erosion and sedimentation. Condition number 4, prior to occupancy, the shorelines shall be repaired to a natural state using native vegetation. Buffers and clearing are permitted as per the site alteration bylaw. Condition number 5, the applicants must submit confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the development meets the granted lot coverage and shoreline lot coverage.
Any questions on that?
I don't have any, Greg?
Well, it's just the one condition, and I'm sure maybe you're gonna discuss that, maybe, Jeff? It's the coverage and the survey supplied and so on. That's
Yeah,
how I got
That's
it.
what I was gonna mention. So between the time the application was submitted, there was some more background work done and Mr. Bishop provided a survey which clarified the actual size of the property and the extent of their lands, which is incorrect in the municipal system. So that altered what variances are actually necessary. My understanding, and please confirm, is that they comply with the lot coverage now, so that variance isn't needed. And the requested variance for shoreland lot coverage is being reduced from 24 point something down to 16.5 is my understanding.
Yes.
So it's quite a drastic change, but for the better.
So that's B part of the variance, is that what it is?
They're both being changed. So the first variance is no longer necessary, which is
We
A.
don't need it?
And B would be reduced from 24.2% down to 16.5%.
The guy that brought Mr. Bishop.
No.
Well, and I just want to talk about the condition itself,
Okay,
because herein lies the problem. As we know, you guys own all the property in front, which you don't. So we have a title issue here, right? And Shelley bought the property. Unfortunately, the lady that she bought from was sick. They closed the deal before Paul finished his survey that went on after the fact to say, no, we actually own more property. So that's how this came 4 months later, therefore was not used in the deed and the transfer of the title. So they still have a title problem. So the only thing that if the percentages are going to change, I just want you to say essentially that the Ontario Land Surveyor will confirm that the lot, well, the shoreline lot coverage granted will meet the dimensions or I guess the area of Plan 19R7607. Like we need to specify it's that plan. If not, then we got to go back to the original old deed and need 2 variances. That's all I'm saying. Sooner or later, they got a title problem they got to fix.
This one is the registered survey.
Yeah, this is the registered survey Paul did.
The other one.
And
was
so
not.
Dad did the one next door, went all the way to the water. Paul did this one all the way to the water. Chuck Strong got involved and didn't go all the way to the water. So it all comes down to surveyor opinion. And the only way to correct surveyor opinion, one of 2 ways, through the courts or through the regional surveyor to say, no, that guy was wrong, that guy's right. So they got some work to do to get this finally on title so that they ever transfer in the future. But the condition has to read, it's based on this survey, which is the opinion of Paul Wilson.
Great.
I just have a
Okay.
couple of questions. First, what was that 19R number?
Yeah,
Greg?
19R7607.
7607, and if the committee wants, we can tie that variance to that.
Then it's straightforward, right?
Yeah, which would satisfy the variance. My only other question is, do the client, your applicants intend to start that process to correct the title?
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is sort of new ones. We sort of opened this up, so we.
So do you
this
have
will
to doctor up
clarify.
this?
I
Adam,
changed the
Adam,
numbers on that.
Yeah, so Adam's
Read
already,
it if it's incorrect, that's all.
the secretary treasurer's changed it
Yeah.
already.
Right?
I know.
It's good to go.
It's okay, good to go.
But because just if I can clarify, because the first variance is no longer necessary, it could be denied. Because it's not necessary.
Want to deny it?
Or do we just get 24?
Okay, then the mover and the seconder.
Yeah.
I'll move that the first variance be denied
Okay,
and the second,
okay.
variance be accept or granted with the conditions, revised conditions.
Okay, is there a seconder? Chris Bishop? It's moved and seconded, moved by Jerry Walker and seconded by Chris Bishop. Be it resolved, the committee's decision with respect to ID 13 MV 2025-13 be recorded as follows. A variance to section 5.2 to permit a maximum lot coverage of 19.4% as opposed to the permitted maximum of 15% is granted.
No, that was denied. Denied.
It's still, that's the one you wanted to be denied.
Yes.
Been denied.
Yep.
We're all in favor of that?
Yep.
We're dying. Variance of section 5.2 to permit maximum shoreline lot coverage be 16.5% as opposed to the permitted maximum of 15% granted. Correct? You're good to go.
Good. Yeah.
You're welcome. Now we got one more.
We got one more? Nobody else here.
They're on Zoom.
We just gotta do.
I'd like to thank you for your professionalism. I've never gone through this process now.
Oh,
Enjoy your summer.
they're great. So who is it?
Right now.
Oh, Dorian, there's nothing wrong with this anyway, is there?
She's joining right now, so,
She's here?
yep, she's on game.
They're asking for section 5.2 to permit a seasonal dwelling to have a minimum interior side lot line setback of 3.7 meters or 12 feet as opposed to required maximum of 4.5 meters or 15 feet.
Just go ahead right there.
Any questions?
She's there. She's there.
She's there. She's up there.
Can you bring us up to date on what you want to do here?
Hi, sir. Sorry. When we did our first minor variance, we didn't realize that we weren't meeting the interior set line. And our bedroom area, primary bedroom area, which will be accessibility, is a little too close to the property line. We thought it was 4.5 meters, but we measured incorrectly. When our surveyor came out to do the survey for the original minor variance, they had pointed out that we did not meet that required setback. So we are just requesting to be able to continue with our build, and we applied for this minor variance.
Yep. Or, Adam.
So through you, Chair, notice of the minor variance was circulated as required by regulation on June 26, 2025. No comments have been received. Should the committee decide to grant the requested variances, the requested variance, the following conditions would be appropriate. This variance applies to a seasonal dwelling as shown generally on property sketch dated June 24th, 2025 and attached to the decision. Condition number 2, the County of Haliburton Shoreline Tree Preservation Bylaw 3505 applies. Condition number 3, during construction, proper site preparation and construction methods are to be used to prevent sedimentation of the adjacent lake. Condition number 4, prior to the pouring of footings, the applicants must submit confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the seasonal dwelling meets the interior side lot line setback as granted by the committee.
You okay with that?
I have one exception to number 4. To call back out the surveyor again to do another survey of that set line. That's already been marked. He marked it when he was out. I guess I can get him to provide comments, but it's going to cost me another $1,300 to have them come out again to resurvey.
We'll
or to
ask,
put those pins in.
we'll ask our, Mr. Jeff Isles to respond to that.
Yeah, hi, Candace, I can answer that. You don't have to have the surveyor go back out. At least I don't think. If they've already been out there and marked that, they should have
Yep.
notes and should be able to provide us a letter, and that's sufficient.
Okay, so I will do that. I will talk to Adam at Bishop and see what they can do for me. Yeah, because it was just gonna cost us again. We've already spent about $8,000 in surveying costs for this property. And that includes the down payment that we had to do to purchase the shoreline road allowance as well.
So you're happy with this then?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Don, I'll move that we, the
Moved by
variance be
Chris.
granted.
I'll second it, Don, if you like.
Okay. Moved by Chris Bishop and second by Barry Boyce. We resolve the committee's decision with respect to file D13MV 2025-15 be recorded as follows. The variance of section 5.2 to permit a seasonal dwelling to have a minimum interior side lot line setback of 3.7 meters or 12 feet, as opposed to required minimum of 4.5 meters or 15 feet. Granted. In favor? You're good to go.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you, Jeff and Adam, for all of your help.
It's our pleasure. This is all yours. This is a tough one. I need a mover and a seconder to close the meeting. Moved by Barry Boyce. And seconded by, who was holding up their hand? See, Chris? Jerry.
Yep.
Moved by Barry Boyce, seconded by Gerald Walker, that this meeting now be closing at 12:04.